hired my bully from grade school only to fire him publicly. My bully George made it his mission in life to make my own life miserable. I don't even know why he targeted me, but he did the moment he met me in second grade, tripping me, shoving, dumping my books into puddles of water, just to name a few. As we grew older, the violence became worse. Punches in the bathroom, shoved into lockers, beatdowns daily before and after school. My mother had to take me to the ER after George in 5th grade took a metal pole and slammed it down multiple times on my legs. Both my legs had been shattered. The surgeries and physical therapy were one of the hardest things I had ever been through. George had been expelled from school after that. I took a seat on my first day of high school, and all I heard behind me was someone taking a seat before I heard a snip. My face drained of color as I turned around to see George holding my braided hair in a fist. "Why did you do that?" I screamed as I felt my anger bubble over. My heritage was known for all of its members to grow out their hair. It made us closer to the earth. "You looked like a pansy, and it needed a change if I am assigned to sit behind you," George said with a sadistic smirk. When I went to the principal with the proof of my hair being cut and the braid, all he did was look at me and grunted. George only received 1 detention for it. My mother had held me after school as I cried silently at the injustice that was occurring. It was at this point I promised myself that I would get revenge on George. He needed to be knocked down off of his high horse that made him think he was untouchable. At high school graduation, George tripped me down the steps. All of the people watching gasped in shock before they called an ambulance for me. The concussion lasted 2 weeks. When I finally got to college, I thought I would never see George again. I thought wrong. It turned out he had one class with me almost every semester. It seemed like George had gotten a scholarship ride at the college for being a football player, which made it thousands of times worse because college was supposed to be my escape, and my anger boiled quietly below the surface. Then George decided to get my girlfriend drunk enough that he was able to sleep with her, and I felt my heart break. With added salt in the wounds, George had gotten the whole football team to haze me instead of the new teammates. The scars on my arms scared my mother into helping me file a restraining order, which was approved. It was at college graduation when George was arrested for punching me in front of everyone simply because he hadn't been able to graduate. I made sure to press charges of assault. George served 30 days in jail and had 200 hours of community service. Decades passed as I built my own AI company. The decade of the business boomed into the millions, and I needed to hire some new employees. As I sat in my office reviewing the applicants, my mouth dropped open when I saw George had applied. An evil grin slowly formed on my face as I called my assistant in. "Can you make sure this applicant is hired?" I asked as I slid the paperwork to my assistant. My assistant just nodded with no questions asked. The first week of George being hired, simple things started missing. Cleaning supplies, a paper shredder, some power cords, and the likes. By week 2, money started disappearing, and the manager over George had already filed 3 harassment charges. By week 3, I had the video evidence of George stealing from my company. By week 4, I had everything I needed to ruin George. I walked calmly into the meeting room for the new trainees. George immediately spit out his coffee as he saw me. He jumped up out of his seat with a snarl. "You." "Hello, everyone." I ignored George's outburst. "I am the CEO of this company, and you are handpicked by some of the greatest people to work with. However, I am here because there have been complaints filed constantly." I trail off as all the other applicants look at George. I kept a smirk to myself as everyone here knew what was happening. "You can't be the CEO!" George burst out again. The other applicants look embarrassed at George's outburst. Security entered the room as I stared George down. "Either shave your head or be fired. Your choice," I say with a bland smile. George stared at me defiantly as he grabbed some scissors from the table and started cutting his hair in front of everyone. My lips twitched as I watched. "There now, you can't fire me," George states. The employees watched in shock as the security grabbed a hold of George. "Wait! You can't do this!" George screamed in outrage as I just smirked at him. "You are fired for theft of property, harassment, assault, fraud on your resume, and stealing money, George," I state clearly. "I have already filed all of this with the police and are waiting outside for you." As George is screaming, being led out of the building, all the other new trainees started clapping and cheering. One employee even said, "A bully was put in his place. I love this job." George is now trying to plan a prison break from his 12-year sentence.